India is the finance and accounting hub for the world.
Hello, am I audible to everyone? Hello, is the audio fine for everyone? Hello, is the audio fine for everyone?
Hello, is the audio fine for everyone?
So I think I'll make my window a bit more smaller so that it wouldn't cut the notes over here. I think we should just wait for like 2 or 3 minutes so that all the other rest of the aspirants. Yes, Sundara Kartira. Good evening. Good evening all. So I think we should just wait for like a few more minutes so that all the other aspirants could also join us for the session. Yes. So it's 20:37, that is 8:37 right now. We'll wait for 8:40. We'll wait till 8:40 and then we'll start on with the class. So today's session we are going to study about the historical background of Indian Constitution. That is how this Constitution came into being. And I really hope that you all went through the notes of yesterday's and not just attending yesterday's class, but also took notes while watching the video. And also you're following my Telegram channel. You'll be getting my PDF in that. So just screenshotting the PDF or just downloading the PDF wouldn't be enough. You would also have to make your own notes according to that, and only then that will help you for your preparations. So yes, yesterday's class we discussed just a brief introduction or the basis of what our Indian Constitution is all about. And today's class we'll be discussing the history, that is how this Constitution of India came into being and what is the basis of it. So I think we'll just wait for 2 more minutes. And students are joining us slowly, so we'll just wait for 2 more minutes for the benefit of the others as well. And if there's any other issue, you could just notify me right now. That is anything related to the audio or the font size is not right or something has any technical difficulties, you could tell me now. And we're just waiting for the others to join in the class. So yes. So yes, I think we should just start on with the class and the others could, just get in with whenever they find. And yes, today we're going to discuss the historical background of Indian Constitution. That is, for example, who was the chairman of a drafting committee? B.R. Ambedkar. So how is he going to make a constitution from the thin air? He cannot do that, right? For example, there has to be something essential before existing, and only from that he could make modification and necessary arrangements depending on that. So, like that only, can you Attorney General of India? Okay, so we have Attorney General of India, and that is Law Minister. It's not the Law Minister, the first Law Officer of India. So yes, so that is a different. We're going to discuss all that in the coming classes. So that comes under the parliamentary systems, and these attorney generals, they are not ministers or MLAs, but these are the people who are enjoying the office in the privilege of the president. So president is appointing them, and they are considered to be the law officers representing the government from the parliament side, and they are not law ministers or something like that. So yes, yes, state attorney generals is also there, but like I said, I think we will discuss about that in coming classes. Right now, we should stick on to the historical background, something related to the constitution. The reason is that these posts and that there are certain posts and certain designations assigned to it, and we will discuss that later on. And I think this attorney general, we find daily newspapers. I think in the Hindu newspaper we find that the attorney general is probing the Supreme Court for certain, he giving out all the suggestions. That's Venugopal sir. So we will discuss that, and no worries for that. But I think we should keep that aside for a later on when we are discussing all the designations and posts and all. So right now, historical background. So like I said, so B.R. Ambedkar cannot make law or constitution just out of thin air. Something has to be there provided as a basis of it. For example, all these music composers, or for example, simple example, the screenplay or the film movie screenplay writers and movie script writers. So how are they going to make script? Surely this thing has to be existed before, and only then they can modify it and write. Most of the films genre will be a boy and a girl, they fall in love, but there will be difficult situations. So advocate in attorney general's name. No, no, advocate. Yeah, they are lawyers, but it's different case. I think we should it's not complicated, but I think we'll discuss that later on. So, same example that I am saying about the constitution, that is a movie script writer. He cannot, this essence or this creative field like screenplay was there before. For example, I want to write a screenplay for a movie, and it's not something that I created. This post or this creative art called screenplay writing existed before me. So only because of that I was able to write according with the parameters or with the rules and regulations being assigned to screenplay writing. Same here example, our constitution makers, our freedom fighters and strugglers, they cannot make a constitution out of thin air. So surely certain set of constitution and certain set of all these provinces has to be there before. Only from that he could make on modified versions of the constitutions. So here we are going to discuss what existed here, what was the constitution, or something similar to the rules and framework here existed before the independence, that is before 1947. And I really hope that you all attended yesterday's class, and it's actually a continuation of yesterday's class. So yes, so yesterday's class we discussed about the basis of it. So today we're going to study the historical. So before 1947, what was the framework that led India? So we all know until 1857 we were under the East India Company, and from 1858 onwards we were under the Crown or the British government's rule. So these two distinct classes, these two distinct institutions governed us. Yes, East India Company is also from the Britain, and the Crown also indirectly had a control over us, but the regulations or the forms of governance is totally different, and we will discuss that in coming sessions. And here in India, what happened was that, for example, India as a whole, we have 22 states and all, and union territories, but during those periods India was divided into provinces. Okay, just imagine, or see it as an example like state. So instead of state, it's provinces over here. And we have not just the British governed provinces, but also we have princely states also over here. For example, Hyderabad is actually a princely state, and there are other provinces like Bombay Presidency and Bengal Presidency and UUP, and also all these, other than all, they are different provinces, and this is a different name. Example like state. So we had 11 provinces before the independence, and we also had this princely states also governing here. For example, Kochi, Travancore, and all these places were not under the British rule. And one thing was also there are some princely state which was indirectly governed by the British. That is through suzerainty or subsidiary alliances, doctrine of lapse. So I'll just give you just a brief intro of all these terms are, and no worries, we will be discussing all these elaborately in coming sessions. So my idea, like I yesterday said also, my idea of teaching you is that giving you a brief outline of what it is. And once you get the outline, once the outline is clear for you, it will be easier for us to get into the details and then explain everything. Okay, so that's why. So, for example, princely state. For example, Mysore. That is a princely state, but that is under the British rule. That is through, they have their own ways of grabbing or land holding, sort of like stealing these kingdoms from these princes or these kings. It is through annexation and subsidiary alliances and doctrine of lapse. And I think we are all very much familiar with the term called doctrine of lapse. How? Through Rani Lakshmi Bai. That is, doctrine of lapse means, for example, I am a queen, and once I get into an agreement with the British East India Company, I have to abide by them. That is, according to doctrine of lapse, if I don't have my own child to be the next successor, my kingdom will be taken away by the British. For example, I am a queen and my husband passed away and I don't have a child. So what happens? Naturally, I cannot adopt. For example, in the earlier periods and all, suppose a king and a queen, they don't have a child by themselves. What will they do? They'll make the nephew or the niece to be the next successor. But over here, the problem is that your own biological child has to be the successor. And same thing happened over here for Rani Lakshmi Bai. I think you must have seen Mani Karnika of Kankana Ranawat. She didn't have a child of her own. So the problem is that the British India said, the East India Company said, okay, we're going to take your land. So that is an example of doctrine of lapse. And then annexation, the subsidiary alliance is that they'll say that, okay, you need protection. For example, the British company will come and approach a princely state and they will say that, okay, you need protection, we'll give you protection. We'll do something, you give us a certain amount or we'll give you a certain amount in a way that our army will be maintained over here. Sort of like these kings are in house arrest. And these princely state, even though they are governing their own kingdoms, they are being controlled by the British. So we could say that in total India was under the British rule, but there are also certain princely states here and there. And yes, so that is what the annexation policy is about. And these dates, do not be scared that you have to do by heart lot of dates for your history. Just study little by little, and then you could just add on the dates here and there. For example, you will know when you are born, the year when you're born, your parents' birthday, you remember. So how is that? You are not all of a sudden going to by heart all the dates together. One day you study one date, and 2 days later you study two more dates, and that's it. Just add on the points, and only then you will able to retain the information for a longer period of time. So yes, these dates you do remember: 1947 when we got the independence, 1857 Sepoy Mutiny, and one more date also. Just remember the Battle of Plassey, that was in 1757. So during the Battle of Plassey, British India and Calcutta, that is the Bengal, Nawab, they fought, and the British India, they won. And that is not important, but during 1765, this state over here, that is important. 1765 is Battle of Buxar, Buxar. And what happened in Battle of Buxar? Since the British India, that is the East India Company, won, they said that we are gonna get the revenue rights. That is, for example, if a king A captures the land of king B, what happens? He will automatically will get the revenue rights. That is, he automatically is the owner of this place and he have right to collect tax. Same thing happened over here in the Battle of Buxar. The British East India Company, they fought and they won the war. So from here onwards, they started to get right to collect tax. That is, they are the owners of this land. So that happens in 1765, and acquisition of Diwani rights over Bihar, Bengal, and Orissa. And yes, Battle of Buxar in 1764. Yes, yes. Yes. So Diwani rights is, right to have revenue over. That is right to collect tax and all over here. And one more additional information that I would like to give you is that during those period, Mughal Empire was there, and when the Mughal Empire started to become weaker, for example, Akbar. Okay, Akbar is having a huge province, a huge place of northern India, and it is not practically impossible for him to govern the whole of place. So what he'll do, he'll appoint certain ministers in separate places. So in that way, all these Nawabs and Diwans came into being. So these Nawabs and Diwans were assigned by these Mughal emperors. So they kept them in all these places and saying that you look after these places, but I'm in charge. In a way, they're like prime ministers. Okay, so when the Mughal Empire, the next coming successors, they were such weak kings and weak rulers. The problem was that since they were very weak rulers, these Nawabs and Diwans, they proclaimed themselves to be the king. They said, okay, I am able enough. I don't have to be under him. I am very much, powerful. I can look after my own people. So in a way, I could look after my people. So I am the self-proclaimed king. So that's how the Diwans and Nawabs came into being. And yes, so Diwani rights of Bihar, Bengal, and Orissa. And one more thing is that when the British India they came in here, that is when the East India Company came here. They didn't, all of a sudden they conquer the whole of India. They started off little by little, like how we are studying. They started from the Bengal province. That is these places of Bihar, Bengal, and Orissa. So that was a small place, and through years they started conquering little more places, and that's how they, this developed their boundaries. So that is after the Battle of Buxar, they started to get the rights over the revenue to collect tax. And in 1857, the most important revolt. Revolt is Sepoy Revolt, and we will also discuss that in coming sessions. I think I even made a video, a few series of the Great Revolt. Do watch that, and it wasn't a live session; it was a pre-recorded video of the Great Revolt, all the certain important reasons of that led to this revolt. So do watch that video. And after that, after 1857, the British Crown realized that okay, now we cannot let all these East India companies do their own, wishes. We have to look after him. Okay, thing is that this East India Company was a private owned company sent from the British land to India, and the British Crown had majority of share in the East India Company. So for this reason, the Crown had lots of power over the East India Company. So they used to indirectly, control all these functions of these East India Company, and they weren't, much of agreement with all these functions led by these East India companies, because the officials of these East India Company was highly corrupted, and they were not right, and they were actually money minded, and more than that, they only interested in their own welfare. So the British Crown was actually looking for a reason to, to overpower or overthrow this East India Company and take the, their own charge in it. So that's from 1858 onwards, the government of India or the British Crown started to govern us directly. So that's here being discussed. So we'll get to the first one. So this is just an introduction. That is how this British India came here, and slowly by slowly, they, all of a sudden they didn't bring about the constitution. First, they brought in one regulating act, and after a few more years, they again brought in a regulating act. So slowly by slowly, the regulating act got, added on, and then that's how became the framework of a legal constitution. It's not that okay, we're going to govern a new nation, so we're going to bring a certain set of constitution. It wasn't like that. So yes, this is just a brief introduction that in 1600 AD, Britishers came here as just traders, mere traders, and then they started having rights over here. And East India Company had the monopoly to have trade here in India. That is, East India Company was the only British company to have trade here in India, and no other company from British were allowed to have trade in India. Okay, I really hope that isn't confusing. No, it's 1600. 1600 AD they came here. And yes, so they were with the Queen's Charter. That is, Queen's Charter was that Queen gave them exclusive right. Queen was saying that okay, you will be the only company from my land giving the right to have the trade with India, and no other nation from Britain was allowed to have trade first. Okay, and then slowly that was taken away with. So, in the year 1765, East India Company the rights. That is, after the Battle of Buxar, they got the revenue right, and one thing we have to keep in mind is that not everything happened one day. Like for example, Battle of Buxar happened one day, and then revenue rights being given the next day. It wasn't like that. War is something which will last for a few days, and even our Great Sepoy Mutiny, it lasted for 1.5 years. So it will take time. And Buxar battle was done in 64, but the revenue rights was given to them only by the late of 1765. So it's not something which happens in one day war. Next day you're getting the revenue rights. Next day you become the owner. No, nothing like that. It is a time-taking process. And in the 1858, with the Sepoy Mutiny, the whole of East India Company came into a halt, and that's how the British Crown rule started over here in India, and active good governance until 1947. So the first one is the Regulating Act of 1773. So this is just a brief introduction. Uh, the reason why Regulating Act of 1773 came into being is that why and how right of England for charter act trading anywhere in the world, not anywhere in the world. That is, see, she cannot say that people from France cannot go have trade ties and all. She can say from her own place. For example, I am the owner of my house, and I say that okay, my younger son will only get the right to have trade with the other place, and my other children have no right. Similarly, over here, Queen said that from my England, from my kingdom, from my territory, only East India Company will have the right to have trade in India, and no other company from England will have the right to trade. The reason is that Crown had majority of share in the East India Company. All right, is that fine? Okay. So yes, if that is fine, to tell me that. And Queen's Charter was initiated. Okay. So we have to understand. So thing is that we are going to find lots of regulating act, lots of charter act and all. So it's going to be a bit confusing. So one way of studying that is studying the story behind it. That is sort of like when you have the story behind it, it will be easier for you to understand, because polity is mostly and majority of all these factual points. So it will be totally impossible for you to just by heart all the factual points and then remember and then write for the exam. So always have the story up in your head, clear, and only then after that, go through the factual sentences. So the first one, that is the Regulating Act of 1773 came in here. And yes, the Battle of Buxar was in 64 and revenue started in 1765. So it was almost like, 7 to 8 years they waited to initiate the first Regulating Act. The reason is that, the Queen or the Parliament or the government, the British government thought now they have the right to revenue. They're going to look after the company. They're going to prosper, and they're going to make the company very huge, profitable and all. So that's what they thought. But the problem over here, what happened was that these British officials were highly corrupted to a point that the company became bankrupt. And it was totally unfathomable for all these queen and all these parliament to understand and comprehend, because India during those period was very prosperous, very highly prosperous. And since they were very highly prosperous, that is the reason why the different imperial nation came over here and started colony, because they are very rich. And when the East India Company approached the Parliament, the British government saying that we are near bankruptcy, please help us. The Queen was like, okay, fine, I'll give you money, I'll give you help of it, But one thing is that now onwards, I am going to govern you. I'm going to look after my company. So that's how the first regulating act of 1773 came in here. And this is regarded as the first step taken by the British government to control and regulate the activities of East India Company. So studied like that, regulating act. So in a way that the Queen trying to regulate the activities of East India Company. Why? Because East India Companies, all these officials were highly corrupted. And exactly Queen's Charter, how gave from Queen to India to raid? I don't understand. Um, that is, Queen gave the charter to East India Company, saying that you will be the only company from my land to have trade in India. Why is that not clear to you? I thought I made myself clear, and yeah, it's okay. Kapil, thank you so much. Okay. So, yes, so this was the first step or the first initiative taken by the British government to regulate and control the activities of East India Company. This was far by not in a way to regulate India, but to regulate the activities of these people who are controlling India. That is the East India Company. So we are going to study or understand what is the provisions that includes in regulating Act of 1773. First one is that Governor of Bengal was made the Governor General of Bengal. That is Warren Hastings. During those period, there were three provinces: these Bengal and Madras, and Bombay and Madras provinces. And in a way, the Bengal governor was made in charge of these two. That is, these two provinces were made to be subordinate to the Bengal Governor General, and he was named to be Governor General of Bengal. And this is a way of like centralizing the power, drawing the powers from the other provinces to the Governor General of Bengal. Why is that? So that it will be easier for the Queen to just look into his Governor General of Bengal, and it will be very much difficult for the Queen or the Parliament of British to look into all the governors of all these provinces. It will be easier when the head or the most utmost heads activities are being regulated. For those reasons, the Governor General of Bengal was made, and he was assisted by four members. Four members were made so that at least these four members will be a bit more, faithful. And the first Governor General as such was Warren Hastings, and Governor General of Bombay and Madras were made subordinate to the Governor General of Bengal. Why? Centralizing the power. Because it will be easier for the Queen or the British government to just initiate and just look into the regulation or the activities of the Governor General of Bengal. And for those reasons, and whatever the Madras and Bombay they have to do, they have to first notify the Governor General of Bengal. So this in a way make a system, hierarchical system, and only with the hierarchical system it will be easier to regulate and coordinate. If you just look into a small example, like even for a business, for example, just a small textile shop, you cannot just designate everyone with equal opportunities or equal status. There has to be a hierarchical system. There has to be a checks and balance. There has to be someone who's above, someone who's answerable and accountable, and I'm sorry, mosquitoes. So someone who is in charge of everything. So for those reasons, the Governor General of Bengal was created. And this act enabled the establishment of Supreme Court at Calcutta in the year 1774. So why Supreme Court? Because they didn't trust these officials, these corrupted British officials. And there are lots of provisions, lot of systems that we studied and which were hands down from the British. For example, even the constitution and the systems that we follow. But the most evilest things that we followed from them was corruptions, and yet still we are still because the question is what right the Queen had of England to to initiate the charter, because she's the Queen, she is the owner of it. She could say something, it doesn't have to make sense. It's her say, it's her land, it's her kingdom, and there's no questions asked to it. Switch and all out. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Okay, so yes. Everything was made in the Regulating Act. Just understand that Regulating Act is only for regulating the functions of these Britishers. So these Calcutta province or this Calcutta Supreme Court and the Governor General of Bengal was made, and all these regulations was made in a way that they could make sure the company is in our hand and they wouldn't go haywire, they wouldn't make problems for ourselves. And yes, still is continuing. And Supreme Court comprises of a Chief Justice and other three judges. Yes, that has even been followed right here. Even till now, we only have one Chief Justice of India and other minor judges. And who's the Chief Justice of India? And do let me know that in the comments, okay? Chief Justice of India, I think we find him most of the days in the newspaper. And yes, this also prohibited the servants, that is, servants in the sense that British officials to be engaged personally or privately with the local civilians. That is, no bribe, no ways of corruptions was allowed over here. That is, any way that you are found taken bribe from all these local people, you will be punished. So, like that. And they are just written over here accepting presentations of gift, but it's actually in a way bribe. Why they're doing that? So that they could have a curb or control over the corruptions of these officials. And 1773 Act strengthened the control of British government over the company by requiring the court of directors, sorry, it's court of directors, okay? This is court of directors to report to its revenue, civil and military affairs in India. That is, through this act, yes, Sharad Bobde, yeah. Okay, correct. Arshad, okay. So through this act, the British government, for the first time, they had a control. That is, until till here, they, totally forgot. Okay, we gave them rights. Now, they used to think that, okay, now they'll be like minting coins. They'll be all millionaires and all. But what happened here? They became bankrupt. So through this act, this was the first time ever they're having control over the functions and everything of all these East India companies. And also for that reason, they set up court of directors. Court of directors, in a way, sort of like a bureaucrats. Okay, these bureaucrats are set up by the government, British government, directly by the British government. They are not assigned or made by the Governor General. They are made or constituted by the British Parliament. Why? So that they could keep checks and balance. These Governor General has to be scared that for example, the Warren Hastings has to be, he used to have a sense of insecurity in him, saying that there are court of directors over here, and he will look, if I make a corruption, if I do corrupted activity, if I take from bribe from these people, these court of directors will get to know about it and they notify the Queen. So for those reasons, for those essence, court of directors were made, and they are in charge of everything and anything, that is about revenue, civil, military affairs, and everything. And revenue is not just tax, but also about the business and commercial activities. And civil is about the administrative structures. That is, they also did good things for us also. They made all these infrastructures and road and railways. Look into our welfare also, and we cannot point blank say that they are selfish. They made all these infrastructural development for their own sake, but still they did some administrative activities over here. So civil and military affairs over here was looked after by the court of directors, and they are supposed to give reports. They are supposed to make reports and send it back to the government, send it back to the British government. So this way, okay. So this way, everything was, trying to be more transparent. And the 1781 Act of Settlement passed by the British Parliament rectified the defects of 1773. And that is, we are having lots of, acts and regulations are coming, but not everything is important. But study only what is important. So regulating act is important. Then Pitt's India Act is coming, Charter Act of 18, these Moreland, Minto, Monaco, Chelmsford. So study only what is relevant. We are having acts every 10 years and every 20 years. So it's not impossible. It's not possible for us to by heart everything. So we come to the next act of Pitt's India Act. So why this act came into being? Still the British officers are not coming in terms with the way and regulations of the British Parliament. That is, still now these officials are being very much corrupted, and they are doing what they wish, and they are not looking into the welfare activities set by this British Parliament. That is, British Parliament asked them to do something, but they are being very much selfish and they are being highly corrupted. So for those reasons, the Pitt's India Act, the next act came. Every time an act comes, so that it would in a way modify or rectify the previous act. So that's how the Pitt's India Act of 1784 came into being. And yes, Act distinguished between the commercial and political functions of the company. That is, from here onwards, the British government said, okay, we are doing one something. East India Company will make your work little more easier for you. Do one thing. Just look into, the simpler activities. We look into all the administrative factors. That is, since we don't trust you, you look into the simpler or the minor activities. We look into the major ones. That is, the political affairs and everything was taken over by them. And since the court of directors, they are, assigned by the British Parliament, but still, the problem was that court of directors, they are corrupted. Everyone is corrupted, and see, it's not something that we accepted. We Indians, we never accepted the Queen's Charter. It's not something that we have a voice to say it. They came here, they conquered, they fought, and what is imperialism and colonialism? I'll just Okay. Imperialism and colonialism. Imperialism is when a different nation comes over here with the active military and these army, and they overpower us with the strength of military. So that is imperialism. And after imperialism, that is after Battle of Buxar, that is imperialism. They started to have governing over here, and that's how we became colonies. So it's not something that we said, okay, do one thing, you white people come govern us. It's not something that we had a chance to speak. They came here, they fought the battle, and they won, and they had their say. So it's not something that we allowed them to have it. But yes, the first Britisher came during the reigns of Jahangir, and surely Jahangir had no idea that these people will, after many years, many centuries, they'll come here and rule over here in India. So we can't blame anyone for that. So yes, is modern India for grower? I think Spectrum is the best book for it, and I even made a video of all the book list. Just go through that video. Yes. So, like I said, we'll get back to this here. What happened in Pitt's India Act is that the British government said, we look into all the revenue factors, you just look into the simpler ones. So that's how the Board of Control, a new committee came, that is the Board of Control. Before that was Court of Directors. They proved to be, highly stupid for the British Parliament, because these Court of Directors turn out to be more corrupted than the ones already here. So now these people are, utter failure. They constituted Board of Control, and they had the responsibility of all the political affairs. And through the Pitt's India Act, the double government came. That is, these Board of Control will look into all these revenue and administrative factors, and the East India companies was diminished to the commercial, that is the business activities only, and all the revenue and all the military purposes were in the hands of British India. Okay, very good. Yes, so that's very good. Right answer. Okay. So, and also from through Pitt's India Act, the Queen was saying that the Queen proclaimed saying that this place called India is the possession of British India. That is, this is possessions of British. So they are saying that the Queen is saying that this is my land, so I'm giving you just sort of like someone to look after. So you're not the owner, I am the owner. I'm giving just the rights to looking after the business activities over here, and my people, that is my Board of Control, who can look into the military factors. Please don't get stressed and all, because you are getting lots of responsibilities, so it will not be possible for you to look after all the factors. So that's why Pitt's India Act came in here. And the next one is the Charter Act of 1833, and even in between there are 1813. Many acts also came into it, but that's not important. But we'll study only the important ones. So here, the Governor General of Bengal was made the Governor General of India. Before that, in Regulating Act, it was Governor General of Bengal, but over here, Governor General of whole of India. That is Lord William Benedict. And the legislative powers of Bombay and Madras, these provinces were removed. Legislative is legal rights. Executive is executing or the action right. Okay, before over here it was in the Regulating Act, it was here executive rights of these Bombay and Madras was taken over by the Governor General of Bengal. But over here, what happened was that even the legislative rights, that is the legal rights, were taken or removed, and it was given in the hands of the Bengal governor, that is the Governor General of India. And that's what happened over here. So they are trying to make the Governor General of Bengal to be more, powerful in a way that the other provinces are under him, and the Queen will only have to look after his needs. And since it's easier to control one single person than rather many provinces, it's more safer for her. And this act ended the commercial activities of the companies. It was transformed into an administrative body. Until here, in Pitt India Act, the only right that the British Parliament gave to the East India Company was the Commercial or the Business or Trade Act. But over here, even the business right or the commercial right was taken over by the British Parliament, and it was, you only have just the administrative body. That's it. You have nothing. You just zero in a way. And this act ended the activities of East India Company as a commercial body, and it became purely administrative body in a way that, because why they are being more stringent or why they are being more strict on the East India Company, because East India Company will be more powerful and they will overthrow the British crown. They had a fear, and yes, and so this is Charter Act of 1833, and then comes the 1853 Act, and the legislative and executive functions of the Governor General were separated, and the six-member, that is, we can in a way say that the centralization powers, it came into a climax. That it was at its peak of centralization. This is the last straw to make it more powerful, to make the Governor General of Bengal to be more powerful. How? By separating. That is by making different departments for both executive and legislative. So when you make this person to having lots of departments under him, he'll become more powerful, right? Okay. And 6 members in Central Legislative Council, and 4 out of 6 members were appointed by provincial governments of Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra. That is, under him there were 6 members, but 4 people were nominated or appointed from Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra, and it introduced a system of open competition as a basis of recruitment of civil service, UPSC civil service. That's what we are talking about. Before that it was ICS. Now it is UPSC CSE, civil service examination. Before that it was ICS. So why the civil service examination started to be more open? The reason was that, yes, again, corruption. Even for the civil service aspirants and these civil service officers, they were highly corrupted. For those reasons, they said, okay, we'll do one thing, we'll just totally open it. Anyone could come and join it. Even the Indians, they could come and write. So they are actually trying their level best to make it, less corrupted. So that's the reason why the Governor General of Bengal was made to be highly powerful, so that the Queen could only control this person and the other things will be subordinate under him. So this came to huge pinnacle over here, and then came the Government of India Act of 1858, and from here onwards we can say that the British or the East India Company came to a halt, and the company rule started over here. And I think till here it was I able to comprehend everything, and were you able to comprehend everything? Did I convey everything properly to you? If you have any doubt, just you can ask me right now, because I'm about to get into the next session, which is starting from the British rule. Until here, it was just East India Company ruling over here in India. From here onwards, it's about the company or the British Crown is ruling over here in India. So if there's something else that you want to ask me, you can ask me right now. So yes, so I think it's fine. So I'll get on to the next session, which is Government of India Act. That is, from here onwards, after the Sepoy Mutiny in 1857, by 1858 started the Act of Good Governance. That is, the British Crown came and said that okay, till now what we had experienced, it was a very bad governance from the East India Company, but we are going to assure you that you're going to have a good government over here in India. So it was actually an act of good governance. That's what they said, and that's what they proclaimed. The reason is that they are having an answerable government. That is, till then, if a civilian or a local person have a problem, he has to suffer. But from here onwards, you have a problem, you address. You could seek redressal for it. So that's how the Act of Good Governance came up over here, and the powers of British Crown were to be exercised by the Secretary of State of India, and he was assisted by Council of India. That is, these the Board of Control, they were replaced. One thing is that until here it was Governor General, but the post name was converted to Viceroy. Until before here it was Governor General, but now the same person will become the Viceroy. And same here, what we had over here. I'm sorry, here we had. Okay, we had Board of Control. The Board of Control will be removed, and the name given to them will be the Secretary of State. And these people are directly appointed by the British Crown in a way that okay, now enough is enough. I am going to look after my own territory, because why? India is one prosperous place. It is the best place for market, best place for raw materials. For those reasons, I cannot let it go. For those reasons, the Act of Good Governance came in over here, and the council, it was assisted by 15 members. So this in a way started to be a mini parliament. So before, until here, it was just 6 people and 4 people. That is, here we had 6 members in the central legislature, and before that the Board of Control were just 4 people. So 4 people, it's very much easier for these Governor General to control and manipulate. But what happens over here when there are 15 people? At least one people or one person could be powerful, right? So in a way, for example, there are 15 people, so they will be having their own opinions for one single decision. So they could ask, okay, what is your vote and all. So this led to sort of like a mini parliament over here. Sure enough, 15 people wouldn't make a parliament, but they are actually sort of like a mini parliament. So they'll be having their own office, and they would discuss among themselves, and they'll give their own opinion regarding the majority of the vote. And he was vested complete authority and control over the Indian administration through the Viceroy as his agent. And same over here, it's something similar to be the Prime Minister and President. And but here more power is here in the Viceroy, and the Governor General was made. Governor General was made the Viceroy of India. Lord Canning was the first Viceroy. Also, Lord Canning was the last Governor General of India. He was the last Governor General and first Viceroy of India. So the same person, his post name is changed, but his post is not removed. And abolished the Board of Control and Court of Directors, and this Court of Directors name got changed to Secretary of States, and also the Council of India. So that was the first act enacted by the British government or the British Parliament. Now is the Indian Council Act of 1861. So now it's being, after a few more years, they started realizing it. See the proximity of all the acts coming. Okay, we have to look after these people, or we have to bring out certain regulations, because they started to take up their job more seriously. So that's how in 1861 the Indian Council Act came over here, and it introduced for the first time Indian representative. That is, 3 Indians were allowed to enter through 1861, and we have to understand through historical basis. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now, when was INC constituted? INC is Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress, when was constituted? Okay, so thing is that since Indian National Congress didn't, just come into form just like that, because these people, they were highly intellectual people. They start having their opinions. So for those reasons, British Parliament or the British Crown felt that okay, we have to look into their opinions as well, or else they will revolt against us. Since we already have gone through one revolt of 1857, we don't have again the stamina to go through it again. So for those reasons, the British Parliament or the British Crown used the policy of sticks and carrot. That is, sticks and carrot is that example. For example, they'll give you certain breadcrumbs to make us happy, and again will punish us in the next time. So same thing over here, they allowed three Indians to enter here in the legislative councils, but it was just for a namesake. They didn't have any legal powers, or they didn't get any authoritative powers over here. And it provided that Viceroy's Executive Council should have some Indians as a non-official members. Yes, this is what important. They're saying that okay, you will be included, but you will not be an official. You will just be a non-officials. In a way, this was just a namesake, just to make you happy. But we wouldn't, do it just to make you happy for a time being. And this wouldn't ensure you any rights. And it accorded statutory recognitions to the portfolio system, that's sort of like a checks and balance, and initiated the process of decentralization by restoring. Until here, what was the centralization? Centralization was what? One single person had the power from all the other provinces. That is, the other provinces were subordinate to him, but from here onwards, the powers were started to be given back to the other provinces. So yes, and then comes the Indian Council Act of 1892 and introduce indirect elections. So we cannot say it's election, sort of like a nominee, just nominate few people. And it also, till here, it was just 15 people. Yes, Council of India, there was just 15 people, but now onwards, the legislative councils are a bit more enlarged so that it will also accommodate few Indians also along with it. But Indians, they don't have much of right to it. They could just discuss, that's it, but they cannot pass anything according to it. Why? They didn't have an executive power. Executive is the action power. You don't have the executive power. So they could just keep on discussing and having the debates, but that's it. And legislative councils and gave them power of discussing budget and addressing questions to the executive. They only had the right to question the executive, that ask few questions to the executive, but they have no rights over the executive. That is, no rights for the action. And next comes the famous Parliamentary reforms of 1909 and direct elections to legislative council's first attempt introducing representative and popular element. It changed the name of Central Legislative Council to. This is an important one. The reason is that this came after our partition of Bengal. Bengal was in 1905, and lot of historical background happened in this Council Act of this Parliamentary reform. That is why the Bengal was divided, because the Britishers feared, or this crown feared, that these people will overpower us since they are being highly intellectuals. Why they are being intellectuals? The British itself, educating them so that they could be posted in lower clerical jobs and all. But they did this for their own purposes. And what happens when you become educated? You started questioning. You started having series of doubts. You're having your own rational to think about, your own logical, analytical questions and all. So, for this reasons, why in 1905 the Bengal was partitioned into two, and there is also one more important happening, that was the Muslim League was formed in 1906. So Muslim League is something which happened for the favor of Britishers. What they feared, that these people will be more powerful and they overpower us, and for those reasons they separated them. And the Muslim League creation was in a way, ensuring them, okay, everything is safe. They'll have their own problems within each other. They'll be keeping on fighting with each other, and we just have to, add on little kerosene and petrol along with it. So that's how this happened. And parliamentary reforms, in a way, sort of like direct elections to the legislative councils, but they started having separate electorate. That is, Muslim community people and all these community of different electorate will be given. So that is the reason why Muslim League came into being. They had two demands. One is to have separate recognitions to them, that is separate electorate for them. And since the International Congress did agree to that, that's how Muslim League came into being. So these Britishers fulfill these demands, and legislative councils was increased to 60 from 16, and communal representations, that is separate electorate, started to come over here. So this, in a way, they are actually fueling these anger or these communal hatreds between these Hindus and Muslims. So Indians for the first time in Viceroy's executive councils, but that, like I said, they're doing the policy of sticks and carrots. They're giving you little crumbs, but in a way, they're actually sowing the seeds of communal disharmony between us. And the next act came, the Montagu-Chelmsford reform of 1919. And since many people weren't happy with the 1909 act, there were agitations over here. Obviously, there were lots of agitations. And For those reasons, Montagu-Chelmsford reform came for the Britishers' sake, and we had lots of our own demands. Since the Indian National Congress were starting to be much more powerful, we started having our own demands, and that's how this Montagu-Chelmsford reform came. They said, okay, you want a certain reform yourself. Okay, we are bringing you certain rights and bills. You look into it, we'll make you happy. And that's how diarchy came. Diarchy in a way that they're actually making us stupid, making us believing that you are having a power but you don't have the power. So that is, it's divided into two parts, transferred and reserved, and the one with not power is being given to the Indian people, sort of like they are being uh, non-officials. You are non-officials, okay? Same thing over here being repeated in different name. So same thing they are giving. We are telling you that okay, you want power, you will have the power, but you are not an official. So something similar to that. And this is a dual government, that is diarchy, and introduced the provincial subjects. And under diarchy system, the provincial subjects divided into transferred and reserved. On reserved subject, the governor was not responsible to the legislative council. And this act also introduced a bicameral system, that is two classes, lower and upper, like the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and legislative assembly with 140 members and legislative council with 60 members, and direct elections came into being. But this is not a complete universal adult franchise, okay? Only certain people, for example, uh, a group of employees association, okay, you have one vote. A group of zamindars associations, you will have one vote. This is direct election, but even then it was a limited franchise. And this act also required the 3 6 members of the Viceroy's executive councils were to be Indians. That is, few people were considered to be under the powers of Viceroys, but even then they were non-officials. You are just given there for the namesake. You want to sit on the chair, okay, sit in the chair, but you don't have a power. Other reason why this came in is because why they even thought about giving us few rights was even for the namesake was because of the Lucknow Pact. Lucknow Pact was signed between the Indian National Congress and Muslim League. Why? They joined hands together. They said, okay, we'll work together. So they started fearing us. So started fearing the Indian National Congress and these, nationalist people. So they fear that, okay, if we don't do something, they're gonna, have lots of brotherhood love between each other and overpower us. And also the Home Rule League. And I'm sorry if I am giving you lots of information and confusing you. I'm so sorry, but I know I'll try to make it more simpler. That is, there was a Surat split. Okay, in 1907 it was Surat split. That is Indian National Congress after the partition of Bengal. Obviously, a group will be having the peoples of different opinions and views. So one people were moderates. They were very cool headed. They were like, okay, whatever the Britishers please them, let they do that, and we'll also agree. And there was a group of people like Bal Gangadhar Tilak. They were very hot headed. They were like, we have the rights, and we cannot let them divide us on the basis of communal rights. So these two people were different categories. So during the Surat split, this two categories divided, and so after the Surat split, also the Muslim League came into being. So they started to be very weak and all. But after the Lucknow Pact and after the Home Rule League, the Indian National Congress were much more powerful because they now have the extremists together and they also have the Muslims and everyone together. So for those reasons, just for the namesake, they brought in the Montagu-Chelmsford reform. But they weren't able to fool us for a longer period. We understood, okay, this was just a namesake, provincial, all these posts given to the Indians, but not the legal ones. So that's how the Government of India Act of 1935 came into being, and I think we are okay. 1935 Act, and if you remember yesterday's class, I did talk about 1935 Government of India Act, and this is one important one, and this came in because one more thing, okay, after this Montagu-Chelmsford reform came the Simon Commission, and I will be talking that in your history class, since it will be I cannot just go through it and just get on to the next act because that needs to be explained elaborately. I'll discuss you in the next class in your history session. So the next act comes, the important one is Government of India Act of 1935, and we have included Government of India Act of 1935 in our present Indian Constitution, and this constitutes to about 60 to 70% volume of our Indian Constitution, the present that we have, and they have set of systems and rules and organizational framework that they have provided us. And this is the reason why our Indian Constitution is said to be the longest or the lengthiest one, because we are including lots of acts in ourselves. So this act provided for the establishments of all India federations consisting of provinces and princely states as units, though envisaged federations never came into being. Why? They're saying that through this act, they'll make the whole of the territory of India to be one single unit. That is, even the princely states and provinces will be made together as one. But the problem was that these, for example, these princely states, for example, the Nizam of Hyderabad, he said that, I am not signing this pact. Why? They are saying that I don't want that. I'm already losing lots of my power with the Britishers. Now I don't want to give up my power to you so that you can have a nation. So that was the problem. They said we are under the Act of Suzerainty, so we are not up for it. So here in the Government of India Act, three lists were there. That was the federal list, provincial list, and the concurrent list. And the federal list for the center was consist of 59 items. That is 59 parts, like we discussed in the yesterday's class about how many parts that we have. We have 22 parts. So like that, there were 59 items. And provincial list consists of 54 items. And the concurrent list for the both consisted of 36 items. Even now we have 3. So if you remember yesterday's class, you will let me know that in the comments. So yes, and the residual powers were vested in the Governor General. That is the majority of power. They're saying that through the Government of India Act, they're actually trying to please the Indians. So if you remember the history class, during these periods, the nationalists were very strong. They're very head on. So they were trying to please and appease all these nationalists and freedom strugglers. And Purna Swaraj was already given up. Already announced by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1930. So this is 5 years after that. So the Britishers understood that we have to make these people happy, or else they will overpower us or overthrow us. And they said all these things will be provided, but the majority of power will be vested in the hands of the Governor General. And this act also abolished the diarchy. That is a dual government, saying that you will be having just a namesake. So that is taken away with. And it provided for the adoptions of diarchy at the center, and it provided bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. Bicameralism is what? 2 classes, that is a lower sabha and Raj Sabha. Similar to that, lower house and the upper house. So there were 11 provinces. It wasn't possible to give bicameralism in all the houses, but at least in 6 provinces, the bicameralism was provided. So this, in a way, even within the province, it was easier for them to have their own problems and discuss and bring about a difference to it. And these 6 provinces were Assam, Bengal, Bombay, Bihar, Madras, and United Province, and provided for the establishments of federal court and abolished the Council of India. And finally comes the India Independence Act of 1947. And so this was the last one enacted by the Britishers. And through this, we got our India independence. And it declared India as an independent and sovereign. So the independent is fine, but the sovereign is something that we have to understand. So what is the meaning of sovereign? India as a country is not under any external territories or external power. Until here, we were under the control of external power, which is the British Crown. But from here onwards, we are independent. We are sovereign. We are not under the influence of external territory. And established a responsible government of both central and provinces, and designated Viceroy of India and provincial governors. So the rest continues. So in short, today's was a very short class. It was just 45 to 1 hour class about the historical brief background of your constitutions, how the constitution came into being, and what provided the basis for our Indian constitutions. So that was just today's class, and tomorrow it is Christmas Eve, and I'm not sure whether I'll be keeping any class. Tomorrow is actually the eve of Christmas Eve, but still it's important. And yes, and yesterday I took you about the brief salient features of our Indian constitutions. So today I thought I'll just ask you a question regarding yesterday's class. That is, Why India is republic? What is the need for India to be republic? What is republic? Republic is when you have the head of the nation, which is the president, to be directly or indirectly elected by the representatives. Why do we have that? For example, in UK or in Britain, who is the nominal head? The queen. So since they have the queen, you cannot take that away. So you have to give some power to her. So for those reasons, she is the head of the state. But over here, we forcefully keeping someone to be a nominal head, and he doesn't even have an executive power. So why India is said to be a republic nation, and what is the need for us to be a republic nation? So this is a question. Just ponder, think about it. You could Google, you could analyze, and if you are writing it in an answer format, you could just message me or mail me or WhatsApp me. And yes, that's it for today's class, and I really hope that I was able to convey myself to you all. And the PDFs will be given in the Telegram account, and do follow me that. I think I've given that in the descriptions below. And if there's any doubt that you want to ask me now, you could ask me now, because I'm about to end the session. So that's it for today's class. I'm not sure about tomorrow's class. Okay, tomorrow's class will be there, but 24th and 25 wouldn't be there. 24, obviously it's Christmas Eve, and there wouldn't be any class. And also on 25th, that is on the Christmas, but 26th we'll be having class, and all the other days. So yes, that's it for today's